800-951-0592. Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour here on this Monday. Again, the markets are closed, so there's no market recap. At least Wall Street is closed. The gold market is open, obviously not here in the U.S. Right now, so the dollars actually have some weakness today. So gold's down a little bit. Primarily because the euro and the pound are having, I guess, a little bit of a rally. But gold is down 5 right now, 1952. Silver at $24.08. And again, we still have, I can't believe, but we still have rolls of dimes and quarters, which, I mean, you're buying them almost at cost. If silver goes up like 50 cents, it would be below cost. The dimes are at $110. The quarters are at $220. And Jason, it's one of these things with the markets like this year. Joey talk about higher rates. Hey, that's going to be bad news. People are trying to, how can I get my money to do something in this inflationary times? Our good friends over at Y-Refi, you got to look them up as well. Up to 10.25%. Now, to get that return, you're locking up your money for 5 years. So, you know, obviously for some people, hey, that's great. For other people, hey, you know what, that's a little longer than I care for. But they've got it 1 year, 6.25. Check them out. It's a great way to get some money. And here's the nice part. You don't have to worry. It's not correlated to Wall Street at all. Doesn't matter. Wall Street can fall 5,000 points. It wouldn't matter. Right? It can go up 5,000 points. Doesn't matter. They can raise rates 2, 3, 4, 5 more times. Doesn't matter. They can cut rates 2, 3, 4 times. Doesn't matter. Invest, YREFI.com. Invest, the letter Y, REFY.com. Or call them at 888 Y-Refi 24. Now, you got to have at least 50,000. That is the minimum. You can use existing IRAs. Some could even use a 401k. But definitely another place that we try to give our listeners to get some money and generate some returns in a market that, let's face it, everybody's kind of saying, hey, returns are going to be tough. And they're probably going to be tough, not just for the next year or two. It could be a tough market for like the next 10.
I agree, Joe. I think we're looking at a rocky market for quite a long time. You know, the powers that be, you know, the central banks, the governments that financially run the world, that they've been saying a great reset. You know, the World Economic Forum, great reset. You will own nothing and be happy. All that stuff that we talk about. And, yeah, that usually doesn't mean that you have a sky-high flying market that everybody gets to just get wealthy on. Right, Joe? That's not usually what that means. That usually means pain and suffering. That usually means things are going to have to be tweaked and changed. And we haven't had a higher standard of living, I think, in America in 80 years. I think it's just slowly been sliding. I mean, obviously, it doesn't always go straight down. But I'll tell you right now, Joe, it seems like every generation below our generation is just going to have a tougher and tougher road to sled.
Yeah, and these banks, man, they're getting creepier and creepier. Now they won't even cash your savings bonds. What? Yeah. Now, I know for a lot of people, they're like, well, they're all electronic now. Well, they didn't used to be. So a lot of people have been hanging on, you know, their paper bonds, right? Because that's how they used to do it back in the day. They won't even do it, even if you have an account with them. They're saying, as an example, over at Chase, of course, Chase, yeah, $5,000 savings bond. It was a Series EE savings bond. Went in to cash it, and Chase Bank would not let them do it. And again, we're talking about $5,000. We're acting like it's the end of the world. They said that the Chase told the Detroit Free Press and the USA Today that it never stopped cashing savings bonds, but we will do it for customers that have banked here for at least a year, which this woman with the $5,000 bond had. However, they said, we've just put limits on it now. And their limit, ready for this? What's the limit? You know, we always, remember we talked about $10,000 because that used to be the number they liked. Oh, no. $500. That's their limit. $500. And that's only if you've been a customer at Chase and you've been there for at least a year. Anybody who has more than that, you need to cash their savings bonds through treasurydirect.gov. So I don't even know how that works. But Jason, just another one of these things where people just don't know. Right? And all of a sudden, hey, I've got these bonds. I've been saving them. You know what? Today's the day I need the money, and I'm going to go down, and I bought them from my bank. I'm going to go down there, and I'm going to cash them in. Yeah. Nope. $500. Otherwise, you got to go through treasury.gov, and who knows how long that takes before you see your money.
Didn't there used to be some bonds? It's been a while since I've heard this, maybe a long time. But didn't there used to be bonds way back in the day where you'd buy it and it would accrue interest forever? And if you have one of these things, they're worth like millions and millions of dollars now because they keep accruing ever since at or before World War II, Joe. I've heard.
Yeah, I was going to say, those have vaguely. To be really, really old. If you go back, most of the bonds, and I would say in modern times, mature after 30 years. So you won't get any more interest after 30 years, but you're right. I want to say it could be maybe even some of the bonds in the 50s. I know in the 60s that kind of way became the new standard, right? Yeah, you can't just hang on to it forever and have it keep accruing interest. They cut it off after 30.
I just seem to remember back in either the 80s or maybe the early 90s, some guy cashed in a World War II savings bond, and it was like $100 or something, or $500, and they cashed in for like $150,000 or something like that. I'm just wondering if anybody just hearing what you just said about what's going on with bonds is, hey, I'm holding this one on. This one's worth $500,000 now, man. This thing is red hot, and just wondering if they're like, uh-oh. I wonder if my $500,000 is threatened right now.
And it's funny because, when that last year the Treasury changed the rules, and they're always doing this stuff, you guys. This is another reason why you want to have Joey in your corner. He'll know about these rule changes ahead of time and at least make you aware. But, yeah, last year the Treasury's allowed banks to stop cashing savings bond for anybody who wasn't a customer, for anybody that was a new customer. Then they also decided, hey, they can also cap how much they're willing to give you. And guess what they decided? $500 is all you're going to get. Yeah, maybe you want to have some gold. Guess what? You can sell $500,000, $5,000, $50,000, $500,000, $5 million with a phone call. We'll be back. (800-951-0592). Joe and Jason on the Juneteenth federal holiday. The markets are closed today, but I've got a great opportunity in the gold market. $10 Liberties. Now they've been, I would say, the stars this year. The $10 Liberty routinely has been the cheapest way to put old gold away. The 20s and the 5s, they've gotten better, right? Premiums have come way in. But I got another great opportunity here on $10 Liberties, 1 through 9. 1,085. Yeah, we're below $1,100. 1,085. 10 or more. 1,075. So now we're really getting below that 1,100 level. And then get some tens, then add some dimes and add some quarters to it. That's a nice little fractional. Got some fractional gold, the half-ounce gold piece. Then, of course, you got that utility or junk silver or whatever you want to call it. I like utility better. The fractional silver in the pre-1965 quarters and dimes today at 800-951-0592. Just to wrap up this thing about the bonds, I want to note this, because this is the fine print is always what we have to worry about. A bank can decline to cash any bond, whether you've been a long-term customer or not. And listen to the reasons that they're allowed to do it. If they doubt the authenticity of the bond, well, you know what? I don't know. This doesn't look right. We're not doing right. Okay, this could be a fake, so we're not taking it. Can that make sense? Right? I get that. Right? Because there's a lot of good criminals out there, and let's face it, with these printers today, you can make things look pretty real. So that part I understand. That's legitimate to me. But how about this one? Or if they're concerned about the ID that you present them, or your trustworthiness. Yeah, how do you know that? Well, you just don't look very trustworthy to me, so nope, we're not cashing it. So if it looks fake, we don't have to take it. If we don't like your ID, we don't have to cash it. If we don't think you're a trustworthy person, Jason, they don't have to do it. So pretty much sounds like they don't have to do it at all.
Well, sounds like in the future that'll be your ESG score. And hey, well, you can't do an end around our digital currency because you have some bonds, some old paper bonds. We're not going to cash those until you get that score up. That sort of thing, Joe. That's what it sounds like.
That's just I get trustworthiness, huh?
ESG scores trustworthiness. Just ask China with their social credit scores. Can't get on a bus if you're not. Don't have that social credit score.
Do they give you a test? Is there a test you got to take to show them your trustworthiness? I mean, that's wow. It's amazing what's in there.
It's cameras, Joe. It's cameras on your phone, and so if you take the China example, you do some jaywalking. The camera just knocks you down if you point. If you throw your gum down on the ground, you lose a few more points. If you don't pay one of your bills, you lose a few points, right? Or if your carbon footprint's too big or whatever. And suddenly you're not trustworthy. That's what they're building, right? That's at least that's what they're telling us. Got to be trustworthy, Joe. Right. You got to be a part of the system.
Right? Crazy. As told by you, the national debt now above $32 trillion for the first time in the history. Of course, every second, right, we break another record on the debt. I will tell you, I was watching the interest on the debt versus defense spending. For every $100,000 we spend in defense, we're now at almost $700,000 of interest. Just to kind of give you what's happening when we're talking about the levels of the debt. By the way, the debt has now gone up just since the passing of the debt ceiling. I want to say it's up about $500 billion. Unfortunately, Jason, I'm sorry. About $500 billion now since the passing of the debt ceiling. Unfortunately, we got about another $500 billion to go just to catch up. The Treasury's checkbook right now sits at about $240 billion. The problem is they got $200 billion worth of bills due. So, Jason, more debt issuance coming.
Plus just the day-to-day bills that they pay. Catch-up money is adding on faster than just the normal day-to-day expenditures. So, yeah, so you got to add those daily expenditures that has already brought us to the $31 trillion to begin with, Joe.
Yeah, so the already when we're looking here, the federal government surpassed $31 trillion. Okay, October 2nd of 2022, and again we just passed $32 trillion. They're like, well, that's not that bad, right? It's already June, But you got to remember,
it's only 8.5 months. Only 8.5 months. That's not very good.
But we've been in the emergency, the debt ceiling emergency for like 3.5, but we would have passed it like 3 months ago. But again, they had the debt ceiling. But again, here's the sad part for all of us. As interest rates have risen, the debts now are rising with it. We have no chance of having deficits under $1 trillion. And really, I don't think we have a chance of it being under $2 trillion, going to the future. We're probably going to be looking at $3 and $4 trillion coming every single year. We'll be back after the break. (800-951-0592). Joe and Jason here on this Monday. $10 liberties getting hotter. 1,085, 10 or more, 1,075. Rolls of silver quarters at $2.20. Rolls of silver dimes at $110. At 800-951-0592. Digital currencies. Where are we at? What's happening? Central banks now have successfully tested 30 different central bank digital currency use cases, including online payments. They've been doing this with the Bank of International Settlements and the Bank of England. The joint experiment by central banks has tested ways to connect monetary authorities, that's your central bank, and the private sector to facilitate retail digital currency. So now remember last week, we talked about the Treasury. And they're still saying, well, we haven't decided. Okay, so let me start. Before we get going, we haven't decided yet on the retail digital currency. But, and remember, all the things that they were doing. Remember the two big things that came out of this. Privacy. And for those of you, because it's radio, I got my air quotes going. Privacy with a little wink, wink, right? Because we know that's going to be a huge issue. And we learned that the government has been buying data on all of us. And they said, oh, yeah, it's so easy to figure out who you are. Like that's... elementary kid, a kid that took a semester of computer programming could probably figure out who you are based on the data, right? So obviously privacy is a joke. Okay, that's a joke. But Jason, they kept talking about inclusion, right? That was like every time they said, well, we're working on this and this and inclusion. Oh, we're working on this and this and inclusion, right? And inclusion just simply means, hey, how are you not included? Well, the only way you're not included is if you don't have any money, right? I mean, that's the only way you're not included.
Oh boy, yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's nothing else to say. Yeah, if you don't have any money, right? Oh boy, yeah. It's a weird world, Joe. It's a weird world we're moving into. Seems like every day there's some other weird thing that we have to look at and scratch our head about. I mean, I don't know. It's weird living in the age where common sense doesn't seem to have a seat at the table anymore, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. And of course, that just means they're going to be taking money, right, from the people that have it, right, and give it to the people that don't. I mean, right, isn't that what they're going to do?
It's a socialist country, Joe. We're just moving, you just do it one inch at a time, and then at some point you get the whole football field, right? It takes 36 inches just to get the first yard. But after a while, you get enough inches, you get all the way to the other end zone. It'll happen.
And now we find out that the Bank of International Settlements has been working with all these other central banks, and they've been running their practice simulations for the retail digital currency. But we haven't made up our mind yet. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Yeah, get that gold put away. 800-951-0599.